information. It's about creating a feeling of mental exhaustion because you can't sort out what's right. You can't sort out what's true. And there's a lot of people who feel exhausted trying to keep up with, what's the right thing to do. And, are we having another, resurgence on the same level as last year with this new Delta variant? Now they've come out with a new thing called Delta Plus, and somebody said that's COVID without the ads. So, they got Delta Plus, Delta 360. They got Delta, next generation, Delta PlayStation 5. They got all these different kind of sequels that they've got. And all these different variants, all the true scientists who are worth anything keep saying, hey, stop doing a prophylactic vaccine as your main tool for a pandemic, because you doing a prophylactic vaccine are going to continually accelerate new variants, because that's the nature of the beast. That's how this stuff works. That's how a pandemic responds when you do that kind of approach, And so, one of the things that we've talked about is, what scientists like Geert Vanden Bossche, who's a DMV PhD, independent virologist, vaccine expert. He worked at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He said he has an open letter where he talked about, why we need to be careful. He says this was back in March of this year. He says, I am all but an anti-vaxxer. As a scientist, I do not usually appeal to any platform of this kind to make a stand on vaccine-related topics. As a dedicated virologist and vaccine expert, I only make an exception when health authorities allow vaccines to be administered in ways that threaten public health, most certainly when scientific evidence is being ignored. The present extremely critical situation forces me to spread this emergency call. As the unprecedented extent of human intervention in the COVID-19 pandemic is now at risk of resulting in a global catastrophe without equal, this call cannot sound loudly and strongly enough. As stated, I am not against vaccination. On the contrary, I can assure you that each of the current vaccines have been designed, developed, and manufactured by brilliant and competent scientists. However, this type of prophylactic vaccines are completely inappropriate and even highly dangerous when used in mass vaccination campaigns during a viral pandemic. Vaccinologists, scientists, clinicians are blinded by the positive short-term effects in individual patients, but don't seem to bother about the disastrous consequences for global health. Unless I am scientifically proven wrong, it is difficult to understand how current human interventions will prevent circulating variants from turning into a wild monster. So he says, racing against the clock, I am completing my scientific manuscript, the publication of which is unfortunately likely to come too late, given the ever-increasing threat from rapidly spreading, highly infectious variants. This is why I decided to already post a summary of my findings as my keynote speech at the recent vaccine summit in Ohio on LinkedIn. Last Monday, I provided international health organizations, including the WHO, with my analysis of the current pandemic as based on scientifically informed insights in the immune biology of COVID-19. Given the level of emergency, I urge them to consider my concerns and to initiate a debate on the detrimental consequences of further viral immune escape. For those who are no experts in this field, I am attaching below a more accessible and comprehensible version of the science behind this insidious phenomenon. While there is no time to spare, I have not received any feedback thus far. Experts and politicians have remained silent while obviously eager to talk about relaxing infection prevention rules and springtime freedom. My statements are based on nothing else but science. They shall only be contradicted by science. While one can barely make any incorrect scientific statements without being criticized by peers, it seems like the elite of scientists who are currently advising our world leaders prefer to stay silent. Sufficient scientific evidence has been brought to the table. Unfortunately, it remains untouched by those who have the power to act. How long can one ignore the problem when there is at present massive evidence that viral immune escape is now threatening humanity? We can hardly say we didn't know or were not warned. In this agonizing letter, I put all my reputation and credibility at stake. I expect from you, guardians of mankind, at least the same. It is of utmost importance. Do open the debate. By all means, turn the tide. And he's talking about why this mass vaccination amidst a pandemic creates an irrepressible monster. He says the key question is, why does nobody seem to bother about viral immune escape? Let me try to explain this by means of a more easily understood phenomenon, antimicrobial resistance. One can easily extrapolate this scourge to resistance to our self-made antiviral antibiotics. Indeed, antibodies, ABS, produced by our own immune system can be considered self-made antiviral antibiotics, regardless of whether they are a part of our innate immune system, so-called natural antibiotics, or antibodies, or elicited in response to specific pathogens, resulting in so-called acquired antibodies. Natural antibodies are not germ-specific, whereas acquired antibodies are specifically directed at the invading pathogen. At birth, our innate immune system is unexperienced but well established. It protects us from multitudes of pathogens, thereby preventing those pathogens from causing disease. As the innate immune system cannot remember the pathogens it encountered, innate immunity has no so-called immunological memory. We can only continue to rely on it provided we keep it trained well enough. Training is achieved by regular exposure to a myriad of environmental agents, including pathogens. However, as we age, we will increasingly face situations where our innate immunity, often called the first line of immune defense, is not strong enough to halt the pathogen at the portal of entry. When this happens, the immune system has to rely on more specialized effectors of our immune system to fight the pathogen. So as we grow up, we increasingly mount pathogen-specific immunity, including highly specific antibodies. As those have stronger affinity for the pathogen and can reach high concentrations, they can quite easily outcompete our natural antibodies for binding to the pathogen and virus. It is precisely this type of highly specific, high affinity antibodies that current COVID-19 vaccines are inducing. Of course, the noble purpose of these antibodies is to protect us against COVID-19. So why then should there be a major concern using these vaccines to fight COVID-19? Well, similar to the rules of applying to classical antimicrobial antibiotics, it is paramount that our self-made antiviral antibiotics are made available in sufficient concentration and are tailored at the specific features of our enemy. This is why in case of bacterial disease, it is critical to not only choose the right type of antibiotic, but also to take the antibiotic for long enough. Failure to comply with these requirements is at risk of granting microbes a chance to survive and hence may cause the disease to flare up. A very similar mechanism may also apply to viruses, especially to viruses that can easily and rapidly mutate, which is, for example, the case with coronaviruses. When the pressure exerted by the armies, population's immune defense starts to threaten viral replication and transmission, the virus will take on another coat so that it can no longer be easily recognized and therefore attacked by the host immune system. The virus is now able to escape immunity, which is what so-called immune escape is. However, the virus can only rely on this strategy provided it still has enough room to replicate. Viruses, in contrast to the majority of bacteria, must rely on living host cells to replicate. This is why the occurrence of escape mutants isn't too worrisome as long as the likelihood of these variants rapidly finding another host is quite remote. However, that's not particularly the case during a viral pandemic. During a pandemic, the virus is spreading all over the globe with many subjects shedding and transmitting the virus, including asymptomatic carriers. The higher the viral load, the higher the likelihood for the virus to bump into subjects who haven't been infected yet, or who were infected but didn't develop symptoms. Unless they are sufficiently protected by their innate immune defense through natural antibodies, they will catch COVID-19 disease as they cannot rely on other acquired antibodies. It has been extensively reported, indeed, that the increase in the spike-specific antibodies in asymptomatically infected people is rather limited and only short-lived. Furthermore, these antibodies have not achieved full maturity. The combination of viral infection on a background of suboptimal antibody maturity and concentration enables the virus to select mutations, allowing it to escape the immune pressure. The selection of those mutations preferably occurs in the S protein, as this is the viral protein that is responsible for viral infectiousness. As the selected mutations endow the virus with increased infectious capacity, it now becomes much easier for the virus to cause severe disease in infected subjects. The more people develop symptomatic disease, the better the virus can secure its propagation and perpetuation. Unfortunately enough, the short-lived rise in the spike-specific antibodies does, however, suffice to bypass people's innate and natural antibodies. Those are put out of business as their affinity for spike is lower than the affinity of the spike-specific antibodies. This is to say that with an increasing rate of infection in the population, the number of subjects who get infected while experiencing a momentary increase in spike-specific antibodies will steadily increase. Consequently, the number of subjects who get infected while experiencing a momentary decrease in their innate immune system will increase. As a result, a steadily increasing number of subjects will become more susceptible to getting severe disease instead of showing only mild symptoms or no symptoms at all. During a pandemic, especially youngsters will be affected by this evolution, as their natural antibodies are not yet largely suppressed by a panoply of acquired antigen-specific antibodies. Natural antibodies and natural immunity in general play a critical role in protecting us from pathogens, as they constitute our first line of immune defense. In contrast to acquired immunity, innate immune responses protect against a large spectrum of pathogens. Because natural antibodies and innate immune cells recognize a diversified spectrum of foreign agents, it's important indeed to keep it sufficiently exposed to environmental challenges. By keeping the innate immune system trained, we can much more easily resist germs which have real pathogenic potential. It has, for example, been reported and scientifically proven that exposure to other quite harmless coronaviruses causing a common cold can provide protection, although short-lived, against COVID-19 and its loyal henchmen, the more infectious variants. So he's basically saying that this approach to the mass vaccination of everybody in the middle of a pandemic is suppressing the ability of our natural immune system to drive this virus out and keeping it going by giving a limited defense with the vaccine. And that's a problem. And so I encourage you all, by the way, to check out my new interview with Dr. Pierre Kory of the Frontline Critical Care Doctors for COVID. It's a fascinating interview. He talks about early care treatments. He talks about what he's been doing, working with doctors and saving hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives with early treatment for COVID. It's a real thing with lots of randomized trials behind the products that they're using that are generic, inexpensive, and they're nonprofit medicine because they're generics versus these profit-driven medicines that the TV and the government tell you are the only solution. They're simply not, scientifically incorrect. Let's take a quick break. We'll return live with more in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for their loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. As we spoke about yesterday, there came out, it was buried by the news of this Cuomo guy getting the Democrat herd has turned against him. He's become a liability with his behavior. But that drowned out the news of New York City mayor coming out and saying they're going to have basically a mandate for you have to have the vaccines to get into indoor dining, to get into the gym, to get into all these other places. And meanwhile, that comes amidst reports that the rodents in New York continue to be enraged, in a state of stupor, because the only thing they can do is eat the trash vegetable oils that are just running. They're oozing out of the trash cans in the middle of the streets of New York City, in the back alleys. This mayonnaise that these New Yorkers have been told is healthy by their government. They eat the soybean oil sludge. The mayonnaise is oozing out, and the rodents are becoming massively obese. They're becoming massively mutated and diabetic and all kinds of other disgusting, horrible things that rodents are not supposed to have. So I think we've got a clip. Let's check in on what's going on in the streets of New York City right now. Sounds like chaos out there in New York City right now, as rodents of obese size are coming after people who are trying to get meals in the alleys of New York City. You can't get a meal at a restaurant if you do not take an experimental product brought to you by Pfizer or Moderna or Bill Gates and all these other guys that have stakeholder interests in these companies. You can't get a meal, so you're meant to fend out in the wilds of the alleys of New York City with deranged, obese rodents scurrying around, licking the vegetable oils and getting sicker and sicker. It's a sick place to be in New York right now. Don't want to be there, as that fascist mayor continues to try to clamp down on behalf of his big pharma interests. He'll never tell you. A clown like that, a fool like that will never tell you to take ivermectin. That's a generic drug. That means it's a non-profit drug. drug. That means it doesn't have that obscene fat profit margin that politician clowns are supposed to take care of on behalf of their big pharmaceutical clients. That's the reality of what cheap politicians do. They're cheap. They'll sell you out for a dime and a penny as long as that gets them what they want, which is the glory and all the credit and none of the blame for their horrible, stupid mistakes. So that's what we have to deal with right now in this society, is that as long as we rely on politicians to do our thinking for us, we will be falling into the continual problems that we're in. We don't have to stay here. We can all stop eating vegetable oils, and the rats will thank us. When they lick butter, they don't get obese. They don't get diabetic. When they lick the disgusting vegetable oils, the canola oil sludge. Can you imagine being a rat in New York City right now? You can't get as much food right now because, you know, they've got these lockdown mandates for the vaccine. You got to get the vaccine to get into a restaurant. And so now they're left with licking this disgusting canola oil sludge. Think about those plant burgers that those New Yorkers have been convinced to eat. That nasty fungal sludge burger, and that stuff is just sitting there rancid for days in the sun, in the summer sun, in the alleyways of New York City. And these poor, pathetic rats and rodents, they have to lick and eat that disgusting plant goop burger. And they probably think to themselves, my God, what kind of a human species occupies this sick, deranged place? What is going on? This isn't food. This is not food, dear God. The rodents cry out for justice. That's what's going on in New York City. Stay the hell away from that place. It is not safe for families especially. We'll take a quick break and return in just a moment. You can call in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. Or you can write a comment on our live stream and we'll get to it in just a moment. Up next, we'll hear from State Representative Anthony Sabatini, who's running for U.S. Congress, to find out what his latest take is on all the craziness coming out of D.C. Back in just a second.
Folks, we were sold a been there,
Weekdays,
done that presidency.
it's Fox Across America
Who will be ready on day one.
with Jimmy Fallon.
It was a big lie. Listen to Biden here.
120 days. Give me a break.
Understand, if Trump says that, oh, Trump admits he's not ready. Here we are at day 146, because they would also fact check the fact that he got the dates wrong.
It's Fox Across America with Jimmy Fallon. Weekdays, noon to 2. News Talk 1040 WHBO.
The Delta variant spreading rapidly with cases on the rise in every state. Today, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker announcing a statewide school mask mandate for K-12 public and private schools, regardless of vaccination status. He's also requiring state workers to get their COVID-19 shots.
Illinois will require vaccinations for all state employees who work in congregate facilities such as veterans' homes, our corrections facilities, and the Department of Human Services developmental centers and psychiatric hospitals.
Pritzker also urged people who are hesitant to get vaccinated to consult their doctor about the safety of the vaccine. New York's International Auto Show, meantime, slated for the last week in August, has been canceled. It's the second time in a year due to COVID. 4 New York County District Attorney's offices launching inquiries into sexual misconduct allegations against Governor Andrew Cuomo, deemed credible in the state's Attorney General report. Michelle Franzen.
Neighbor's Choice returns. Looking at our live stream comments, coming in. Tina says, great informative conversation between David and Pierre Corey, MD. Would encourage everyone to listen. Joseph says, is that a new episode? I did not post that on the YouTube channel. It's on Rumble. It's on our website, aneighborschoice.com. It's the top story right now. Check it out. YouTube does not like science, okay? YouTube does not like helping, especially poor people, get access to early treatment that's extremely effective for a dangerous pandemic. They're very anti poor people having access to affordable medicine that helps them save lives and reduce symptoms. So we didn't post the interview on with Pierre Corey on YouTube as a failing platform that they are. We posted it on the new platforms that are going to be emerging and eclipsing YouTube, and that's platforms like Rumble. So check out aneighborschoice.com where you'll see it as the top story, our interview, exclusive interview with Dr. Pierre Corey. And in the interview, he's the president of the FLCCC Alliance and frontline doctor in the battle against COVID. We talk about a variety of topics, such as the treatment of long-haul COVID symptoms, whether generic medicine can be used against the virus, the resistance from the ivory towers towards the use of generic medicine, how Big Pharma has copied the tactics of Big Tobacco and blocking scientific research for financial reasons. It's a very great discussion with Pierre Corey, MD, who's leading the charge to save thousands of lives with early treatment. It's a fantastic interview. You want to check it out. But, of course, you can't get that on YouTube. That's on our website, our podcast feed, and our Rumble channel. So joining me now is State Representative out of Florida, Anthony Sabatini. How you doing, Anthony?
Good, David. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's great having you on the show. You're running for Congress. Right now, there's a lot of noise coming out of D.C. There's rumbles that they want to bring back lockdowns and coordinate stuff. What's your response out the gate to this rumbling that we need to do lockdowns again?
Well, I just think it's so dumb. I can't believe they're actually suggesting it. It's universally unpopular. It doesn't work. It's not constitutional. There's just so many arguments against it, and yet they're not embarrassed to suggest it in public. It just blows my mind. Thankfully, we live here in Florida where we kind of laugh at the people and chuckle at the people who say stuff like that. But, yeah, they still have some influence, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we've just heard from New York City, of course, they're going to do a papers, please mandate. In order for you to go to a restaurant indoors or go to the gym, you have to get your experimental product from Pfizer or Moderna or what have you. What do you think of this? Is this something that we're going to see sweeping across the blue states or blue cities around America?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're going to be pushing everything they can to basically just increase the size of government and create the perception that, you need the government to stay safe. You have the choice of taking a vaccine. If you don't want to do it, that's not our business to tell you to or make you, but they don't like that. They like it when they can control every single decision that anybody can make. It's totally insane, but it's what they believe. So, yeah, you're going to see a wave of that across the blue states, and I think you're going to see a lot of Republicans leave those states to come to more sensible places like Florida or Georgia or Tennessee and just get out of the badly run far left blue states.
Now, a lot of people say we've really got to, figure out all hands on deck to protect Florida and other places that are bastions of liberty relative to some of these other states. As a representative of Florida that wants to now go to the U.S. Congress, what is the number one priority you have for doing just that, to protect places like Florida from federal overreach? What do we need to focus on?
Well, there's a lot of things we can do. We just really need the state legislature to step up. We got so many rhinos who are just sitting on their rear end doing nothing. I think one of the things we can do right now is, first and foremost, put enormous supply, financial and manpower supply into the efforts of Texas to create security at the southern border. That should be the number one thing we're doing as a state. We also need to be nullifying some of these federal laws that they're trying to push on us. We should basically make it that our airports and other facilities in Florida just cannot do mask mandates, strip the local governments of power. I'm calling for a special session where the woke corporations like Disney and the radical leftist local governments like Orange County are stripped of all their ability to mandate masks and vaccines. I think we can do that. We can do it legally. We need to be doing that now. Those are some of the ideas. And, some of the other things the government's doing right now, I mean, they're trying to basically bring the Capitol Police into all 50 states to start hunting down and arresting all Trump supporters. And we can easily fix that by making it illegal for them to come to our state, erase their jurisdiction, make it so that we won't recognize them as a lawful law enforcement agency, and that they will be arrested if they come into our state trying to exercise law enforcement power. That's something else we need to be doing. So there's a lot of stuff we could be doing right now.
So has there been any interest in the state legislature of Florida to challenge the Capitol Police making a big presence in our state, or no?
No, it's just been me, really. I always talk about there's a big gap between the actual conservative voters of the Republican Party, the hardworking people of our great state, and then the sort of corrupt, weak, easily controlled Republican politicians that never really act or, proactively act. They just react. So if the grassroots is making them do something, they'll drag their feet, but they'll sometimes do it, but generally don't want to. So these new threats that are emerging, the political class in Tallahassee and in D.C., they're just going to wait until basically the people forget about some of the threats, and then tell them that it's too late to act. And that's the problem we have. We got to get better at primarying these Republicans, throwing them out of power, and replacing them with fighters.
Yeah, why is it so hard for so many Republicans in the legislature to have any proactive stance for liberty? They just don't care, or they just got establishment political donations that make them act accordingly?
Well, they're not, running and occupying the office for the right reasons. They don't actually care about creating any kind of conservative reform, America First type reform. They don't care about that. They don't want to see American greatness restored. They just simply don't care. And for those who do, most of them are just such spineless cowards that they're not willing to do or say anything because they don't want to make angry the Republican establishment. Just yesterday I was attacking Jeb Bush on Twitter, and it's been this interesting day of just being attacked by the establishment for having the gall to attack Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush is one of the worst, influences in American politics within the Republican Party today. He's America last. He's anti-America first. He's anti-Trump. And he's just, just total trash. He wants unlimited illegal immigration to the point where we'll lose our country. And he's okay with that. And, we don't have enough Republicans that are countering guys like that's influence in the movement.
Right. Yeah. When you see the calls for, well, let me give you an example. Google recently demonetized Piers Morgan's show. I guess he wrote a column because he criticized Simone Biles. Now, I don't really care about that story in particular, but it's a weird place we're at when you've got a monopoly on online advertisement who's so petty that if you came and criticize a person quitting an Olympics game, and they're going to cut your ability to get revenue for your articles. What's your response to this kind of insane obsession?
Our biggest threat, there's a lot of threats to this country and to the liberty of the people in this country, but the biggest one's probably big tech. I always say our biggest threats are domestic. We got big tech that literally has created a sort of groupthink social media censorship regime in which most people aren't even going to be censored. They're going to censor themselves because they're afraid to be thrown off their platforms. They're afraid to be attacked by the woke mob. They're afraid to be kicked off. So they're just not going to even dare come close to the line of what's considered acceptable speech. And you have major TV hosts that are controlled by companies like Google, and it makes you think, what's the Republican Party been doing for the last 20 years? Why are they not prepared for these threats? Instead, they've been sitting on the rear end, letting big tech companies run roughshod over our nation. It's quite sad.
Do you think that the real fight really is going to be in D.C.? Is that why you're headed there? Or how do you see it playing out in terms of the states?
I think the real fight is everywhere. I just know, once again, that if I didn't run for Congress, you're going to get a pushover, spineless, corrupt establishment Republican who's just going to contribute further to the problem. And so you got to have some freedom fighters in D.C. But you also see them at the state level. It's really just two fronts to the same war.
Right. And speaking of war, is there any action going on with the Defend the Guard Act that was, you had been pushing the idea of bringing our National Guard out of these endless occupations overseas?
No, we filed it. We got a good conversation still going, but the Rhino Republican establishment, of course, killed the bill, at least temporarily. We're expecting, to file it again next year and get it moving and hopefully get it filed in the Senate. It makes sense. For those who don't know, it's a common sense bill that says if you're going to send the troops overseas, you have to declare war. It's in the Constitution. You can't be sending troops in harm's way and put them in 150 different countries around the world if there's no war. It's just plain unconstitutional, and the states have a major role in stopping that violation of the Constitution by making it that their state's guardsmen cannot be deployed until that declaration of war is made. Now, we all hope and pray that the declaration of war is never made and that they don't actually do it, but if they do, it makes sense to send the National Guard. But until that time comes, we should be fighting and passing the Defend the Guard Act.
Well, Anthony Sabatini, it's always great having you on, and we appreciate what you're doing in the legislature of Florida. Any final thoughts as you continue to run with your race in Congress here?
No, that's it for now. Check me out, Anthony Sabatini, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, LinkedIn, everything, and follow me. I'll keep you up to date and let you know what we're doing in Tallahassee in the State House, but also at the federal level. I'm running for Congress, and we need to, I try to keep people updated on what we're trying to do in Congress. And we got a lot of big ideas, so check it out.
Well, very good. We've just had a great discussion with Anthony Sabatini, who's running for U.S. Congress. He's a state representative, and we look forward to following that race for Congress with great interest. We'll take a quick break and return live on A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Granosky. Stay with us. We'll look at some more headlines, both local and in the national conversation, when we return after this short break.
Hello, this is David Granosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice Radio. I'm your host, David Granosky, and it's been making the rounds, going viral online, and that is the response, a little interview that a American a gold-winning wrestler. Her name is Tamara Mensah-Stock. She gave a little speech that was so different in its tone than what we've come to expect out of all this, kind of nihilistic, self-hating, bleak, uniform political kind of hijacking of things like the Olympics. Let's go ahead and play this clip from her speech after she won the gold for the American team for wrestling.
Of course I surprise myself. It's by the grace of God I'm able to even move my feet. Like, I just leave it in his hands, and I pray that all the practice, that the hell that my freaking coaches put me through pays off. And every single time it does. And I get better and better. And it's so weird that there is no cap to the limit that I can do. And I'm excited to see what I have next.
Last question for you. That American flag around your shoulders looks pretty good. How does that feel to represent your country like this?
It feels amazing. I love representing the U.S. I freaking love living there. I love it. And I'm so happy I get to represent USA. Love it.
Well said. Congratulations. Enjoy that gold, and we'll see you out there on the podium, okay?
Thank you. I'll try not to cry, but no problem.
So, that's the kind of spirit that people used to take for granted in America as what it meant to be who we are as people. Optimistic, ambitious, go-getting, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with celebrating that kind of cultural attitude. Some people say, don't be supportive of, don't be positive of your own country. And that's not the right mentality to have. You should be thankful wherever you are, whichever local region you grow up in the globe. Be proud of where you live. It doesn't mean you have idolatry or isms where you worship it or you create these kind of false, stupid conceptions of us versus them. But there's nothing wrong with, loving your own fellow people that you know and the culture that you grew up with and defending, your own joy to represent them on the world stage in a competition. But you see that an infectious joy, a humility, a hardworking attitude, a recognition of God, not attacking one's own country to try to act like you're too cool, you're too above it all. That's the kind of stuff that Americans used to take for granted, and now it's become a rarer thing. So when we see it, it reminds us of where we could go again, that we don't have to have this mindset baked into our reality that everything is about self-flagellation and self-hatred. That is not proper humility. That's the opposite of humility. It's actually the ghost of humility. It's a false form of humility that continues to kind of become the popular mode in the mainstream media and the old press and that kind of thing. So one of the things that we like to do is to celebrate excellence, to celebrate people who defy the groupthink of their time. And that's why, when we see clips like that represents that kind of thing that we like to showcase on this show. The ultimately excellence in everything we do, not just, sports competitions, should be what we should strive for. We should not focus on tearing people down with political threats of coercion. We should focus instead on excellence, on skin in the game, on taking care of our lives. That's why I always reiterate to you, stay out of government schools. They don't cultivate excellence. Invest in homeschooling, invest in Christian schooling or micro schooling. There's all kinds of options available. There's no need to go to government schools. Number two, stay out of debt. Stay out of personal debt. If you have a huge amount of personal debt that's way out of control, I think there's an appropriate room to explore bankruptcy. But if it's something you can manage, then pay it off. But don't get back into debt once you pay it off. Stay out of debt, buy things cash, live within your means so that you don't have to, be in a desperate situation if the economy continues to go into a bad spot. So staying out of debt, staying out of government schools. Another thing is to stay out of the big three, problems that are ruining people's health, which is they eat processed grains, they eat refined sugars, and they eat seed oils. So 0 seed oils, no seed oils in your life. Get them completely out of your life. And that means also, unfortunately, watching out for things like bacon and pork fat and chicken fat, because those things are fed these high amounts of corn and soy, which are stored as this linoleic acid, which is the problem with seed oils. So you want to avoid all seed oils. Be very careful when you go to restaurants. Make sure they don't slather your steak and your bread or whatever, your vegetables with these margarines and canola oils and all these mixtures. Stay away from that stuff completely. And then make sure you limit and reduce, these artificial carbs and artificially sweet sugars and things like that. Those are 3 things. You do those things in your nutrition, that's going to make a heck of a difference in your life. Some people want to reduce sugar and carbs to 0. That's fine. But I'm trying to give you a broad spectrum approach, which is 0 seed oils, reduce your grain consumption, processed grains consumption, reduce your white sugar and that kind of thing. Stay away from that. And 0 seed oils, 0 seed oils ever. Do not eat those things. And you'll have a big boost in, dealing with chronic illnesses and different things like that. Getting 8 hours of sleep every day is also very important. Staying away from negativity and stress is another thing that's very important. Those things are not to be minimized or trivialized. Getting vitamin D, and if you're not around sun, getting lots of D3 supplementation every day is very good. That's a critical component of your immune system and everything else going on in your body. So those are just a few essential things that you can do to keep yourself on, the up and up in terms of your personal health, your personal finances, your personal education, your family's education. And other people believe in, doing things like, certain exercise routines and doing, group exercises to have a routine and a ritual with different friends. That can be helpful. Most importantly is invest your time in cultivating your family, your friends, your neighborhood, your community, making it a better place every day with your talents. That's the way you can have a fulfilling, joyful life. We don't have to wait for the DC people to tell us when we can come out, when we can have dinner, what we're supposed to take. That's just nonsense. So here's something Dr. Drew posted. It says the CDC reported today that only 28.4% of the Black community have received the COVID vaccine, with states like California and New York mandating vaccine passports to enter restaurants and businesses. The Black community would be most affected by this modern day segregation. And that's a great point. They don't care about the consequences of their heavy-handed approach. They just want to keep on, telling people what to do. And they don't want to have any options for people to disagree. You're not allowed to disagree. You can't go to your restaurant, and they don't care if they segregate people. They don't care if it disenfranchises people who have long been disenfranchised. They don't care. They just don't care. Patrick on our comment stream asked if I spoke with Dr. Corey. Yes, I did. It's on our website, neighborschoice.com. If you're on YouTube, it's not going to be there because YouTube would delete it because it's a scientifically rigorous discussion about early treatment for COVID. So if you want to check out my interview with Pierre Corey, it's highly informative. Go to neighborschoice.com. That's neighborschoice.com, or go to our podcast feed or subscribe on our Rumble. And by the way, when you click the interview on our website on neighborschoice.com with Pierre Corey, it'll have the Rumble video embedded. Okay. So make sure you subscribe to the Rumble account after or before you watch it. Click through to get to the Rumble page itself and make sure you subscribe there, okay? Because we continually live stream on there every day, and we want to see more engagement on the Rumble side of things so that we don't have to be dependent on these 20th century platforms like YouTube as we move into the 21st century media landscape that we have today. So that's important. We have another interview with Dr. Robert W. Malone, MD, the inventor of the mRNA technology behind these vaccines, who just rips apart the science of why he has problems with these vaccines. We also did an interview that'll be out very soon. We have another interview with Dr. Ray Peat, who is a famous nutritionist who gives some fascinating insights into seed oils and what they do to our body. That'll be up very soon this week. We also have an interview with Dr. Peter McCullough, who is another world-class, impeccable, top-of-the-line scientist and medical doctor treating COVID-19 with early care. We did an interview with him. That'll be out very soon. We've got a lot of exclusives with big, heavy-hitting names, world-class champions changing the game in science and medicine and so many different topics that are related to your life. All of those will be on aneighborschoice.com. All of those will be on the podcast stream. So make sure you rate and review and subscribe and all that for the podcast. Write a review if you haven't written a review for our podcast, because that helps us reach new audiences. All of the reviews that come in so far are quite, positive, and that helps reach new people. Podcast continues to be the area where we're seeing the most growth in our audience worldwide. And it's no wonder when you have interviews like Ray Peat and Chris Martenson and James Dale Davidson, right? And Joel Salatin, the great farmer, and Dr. Pierre Corey and Dr. Peter McCullough and, Dr. Robert Malone, all these fantastic people in the same week, 2-week span. Come on. There's nobody's got that kind of lineup. And that's just one piece of our lineup. You talk about all the other guests we have on. I mean, my goodness, we have Tucker Goodrich coming up in just a little bit. We got the best lineup in any podcast, radio show, period, with the relevant information, and we give you the full 360 perspective. That's what makes us stand out from the crowd. I'm David Gronowski. It's been great speaking with you in this hour. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. That's hello@aneighborschoice.com. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from geopolitical analyst Sir Owen, as well as Tucker Goodrich, our nutrition expert friend, when we continue. But for now, Godspeed.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. After bending the curve, the U.S. once again leading the world in weekly new COVID cases. The spread of the more contagious Delta variant is also landing more unvaccinated Americans in the hospital. Even reports of children going into ICUs. Florida's hospitalization rate is at an all-time high in this pandemic. That as the governor has blocked communities and school districts from issuing mask mandates. Broward County Mayor Steve Geller tells ABC News cases are spiking in his area, which includes Fort Lauderdale.
It's catastrophic. Florida is currently around 24% of the national deaths. Our numbers are going up geometrically.
The hardest hit state right now, Louisiana. ABC's Marcus Moore is in Shreveport at Willis-Knighton Hospital and says they can't find enough healthcare workers.
They are back to square one. For all intents and purposes, their ICU beds, many of them are empty because they're in the midst of a nursing shortage. So even if they wanted to bring in more patients to this particular facility or any of the 3 other locations they have here in Louisiana, they can't do it because they don't have the nursing staff.
The CDC says nationwide, the 7,000 daily hospitalizations could triple in the next month. Governor Andrew Cuomo refusing calls to resign. That as he now faces more inquiries, civil lawsuits, and possible political impeachment stemming from the state's attorney general's sexual misconduct report.
As allies abandon him and his support dwindles, Governor Cuomo is dug in.
We don't think that he's going to do the right thing because his ego is way too big.
Absent a resignation, state senators Gustavo Rivera and Michael Gennaro said Cuomo should be impeached.
We can go through this exercise. It's the governor's right to go through it, but it seems like the writing's on the wall.
Beyond politics lurk prosecutors. 4 are now reviewing whether criminal charges are warranted, though at this point no woman has made an official complaint. Aaron Katersky, ABC News, New York.
You're listening to ABC News.
Attention! This is an important message for anyone drowning in credit card debt or struggling just to make minimum payments. If you have $10,000 in credit card debt, personal loans, medical bills, or collection accounts, you may qualify for our Debt Restart program with no upfront costs. Call us right now to see if you qualify. 800-384-6781. That's 800-384-6781. This program is designed to help get you out of debt in as little as 24 to 48 months, while paying only a small portion of what you owe. If you are facing financial hardship and are falling behind, or are struggling to make minimum payments, bankruptcy is not the way out. Don't wait. Enroll now, and there won't be any upfront cost or out-of-pocket expense. Start on your way to financial freedom. Let us help you with your credit card debt, personal loans, medical bills, or collection accounts now. Representatives are standing by to take your call. Don't wait. Call now. 800-384-6781. That's 800-384-6781. Paid for by Thomas Kearns McKnight.
Demonstrators in Beirut, Lebanon are marking 1 year since a massive port explosion killed more than 200 people. State Department spokesperson Ned Price says the U.S. supports the activists.
The Lebanese people have a right to have their voices be heard, to take part in peaceful demonstrations.
Protesters calling for accountability as the investigation continues. Political statements from Chinese cyclists at the Tokyo Olympics.
The statement that Bao Jianchu and Zhang Tianqi were trying to make isn't quite clear. On the medals podium, each woman wore a lapel pin depicting China's former leader Mao Zedong. The IOC's Mark Adams.
We are in contact with the Chinese Olympic Committee, who have assured us that we will receive a full formal answer soon, but they've also assured us already that this will not happen again.
Meanwhile, the probe into shot putter Raven Saunders' raised arm gesture during her medal ceremony has been dropped after the IOC learned that her mother died unexpectedly right after Saunders won her silver. Jim Ryan, ABC News at the Summer Olympics in Tokyo.
A Kansas state legislator surrendered his substitute teacher's license after he allegedly assaulted two students in the classroom. Republican State Representative Mark Samsel said extreme stress caused him to have what he called an isolated episode of mania. He's pleaded not guilty to battery charges, saying he's studying ways to handle his stress. This is ABC News.
Your nose is the body's air filter, the first line of defense against airborne allergens, bacteria, and viruses. You wash your hands to protect your health. Now you can clean your nose with Navage. Online at Navage.com. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Your cousin from Boston. New Sam Adams Wicked Easy is light and wicked easy to drink, which means it's wicked easy to call up some buddies for a little day sesh. So, wicked sorry I'm late. Sam Adams Wicked Easy. The Boston Beer Company, Boston, Massachusetts. Drink responsibly.
I'm Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Catania & Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you live again for another hour of our broadcast, where we're coming to you live on FM, AM, podcast, video stream, worldwide, as well as our website, aneighborschoice.com, to provide you news and analysis like nobody else does. And that's why we're joined by our friend, geopolitical analyst, Sir Owen. How you doing?
David, I'm fine. How are you today? It's good to be with you.
Doing fantastic, and it's great having you on. You know, you're a geopolitical analyst, so we like talking about the big world scene going on. There's a story here locally where it says Florida detectives are arrest 17 suspects in County Sheriff's Office and other agencies in Florida, and was conducted from July 27 until Monday. It was called Operation Child Predator, and the suspects were charged with a total of 49 felonies and 2 misdemeanors, including traveling to meet a minor for sex, attempted lewd battery, and so that is a big story that's been making the worldwide press, or I mean, at least the national press, and it's right here in our own backyard.
Well, it's interesting. I noticed it today too, and it seems like that story. It seemed the way that I read the story that the spearhead on that investigation, or whatever it was out of was it Polk County, Imperial Polk over your way.
Yeah.
And two things about that. This is a kind of headlines that the newspapers like, so obviously that you're going to get a lot of play on it. And of course the story has been leaked by someone, and I would assume it's the constabulary in Polk County to the press. So that's where the story comes from. So before it's all over, it's a terrible thing. These people that are preying on children should be locked up for a bit, or treated, or something. But at the same time, they're not guilty yet, so we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. But it's a very gripping headline, and certainly I'm sure that all the parents who read that are gathering their children a bit closer to them and maybe watching. But it's a sign of the times. We have those sorts of things going on, and I don't quite know why it was necessary to mention that the people were Disney employees. I'm sure Disney had nothing to do with it, but that makes it even more scandalous, I suppose, to say that they were Disney employees. I always wonder about these headlines, David. They're always meant to titillate and to stir a very, generally, unfortunately, a very negative response in the readers. So,
well, here's another negative one.
Unfortunate.
Here, actress Jennifer Aniston says she's cutting ties with unvaccinated friends. She says it's a moral obligation. She said, I've just lost a few people in my weekly routine who have refused or did not disclose whether or not they have been vaccinated, and it was unfortunate. I feel it's your moral and professional obligation to inform, since we're not all potted up and being tested every single day. She said it's tricky because everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but a lot of opinions don't feel based in anything except fear or propaganda. And that's why she's cutting off her friends for anybody who doesn't take the product she tells them to take.
Well, I think her argument could be turned around on her about fear and propaganda, quite actually. But anyway, she can do whatever she likes. But I'm sure she's getting some publicity, and this is a nice headline. And quite frankly, I wasn't thinking about her today, but now I am. So she has achieved her purpose. Again, David, the media, it's not meant to inform. It's all propaganda. We're being out here manipulated. I mean, the news media have their objective is to sell their service or to have listeners listen to them. And so they have to be very, very topical and very, very inflammatory. And that's just where we are in the world today. And as you know, around us everything has been weaponized. Everybody's opinion with the internet. Basically, any fool can say anything on the internet, and it is broadcast around. And of course, that's their right. They have a right to be a fool. But we live in a world where all sorts of strange opinions and strange attitudes are broadcast out there. And that would be my comment on that. Who cares what the lady says? I mean, that's her personal opinion, and that makes her happy. She should do what she wants to do. I'm a very much liberty embracing sort of person, and so she has every right to say what she wants to say. But I think her argument could be turned around on her very readily.
The NIH health director, Francis Collins, has hastily walked back a call for parents of unvaccinated kids to wear masks even at home after massive backlash on social media demanding evidence for the practice. After Collins, this is an RT, Tuesday morning appearance on CNN New Day was widely shredded, the NIH director took to Twitter to issue a clarification. He wasn't claiming parents needed to wear masks around their offspring at home, he insisted, but vaccinated parents who live in communities with high COVID transmission rates should wear masks in public indoor settings in order to minimize risk to their unvaccinated kids. So he's trying to walk back what he said, which was very clear because in the original clip, he said, it may sound weird, but parents should wear masks at home in front of their unvaccinated kids. That's what he was saying. While you're watching Netflix, you're supposed to wear the mask apparently like a freak, you know?
Well, that's, again, he's entitled to his opinion, but I thank goodness he can't enforce his opinion as far as I know. But he has no legislative ability to do that. But he can influence people who do have legislative ability and move him towards that position. But it's interesting that he did walk it back. And quite frankly, from what you read, and I didn't read the statement, I don't really know what he said. It sounds like it was pretty convoluted, his walk back, as you call it.
Right. Here's another headline I wanted to get your response to on Yahoo News. It says, under pressure from progressive lawmakers, the CDC extends eviction moratorium. So the CDC issued a new, more limited eviction moratorium aimed at curbing transmission of COVID-19 that will remain in effect until October 3rd. The extension of the eviction ban applies to parts of the U.S. with high or substantial transmission of COVID-19. And thanks to this, so the eviction moratorium allows additional time for rent relief to reach renters and to further increase vaccination rates. I didn't even know the CDC could have that kind of control over rent, huh? My goodness.
Well, I totally agree with you. I have no idea that they can issue and cannot fulfill their contractual obligations. I mean, when you do a lease or when you're have rented a piece of property or have a mortgage and you're not paying it, unfortunately, if you don't do that, what happens is your mortgage is foreclosed, or in the case of a renter, you are evicted. And while I have every sympathy for that, I just wonder how in the world it is that this organization, that I don't know very much about, frankly, has the right to abrogate contractual arrangements. If you see what I mean, David. Right. It's an interesting situation, but the other obvious truth here is all they're doing is kicking the problem down the street, kicking the can down the street, because this problem is not going to go away. The people who have been decimated or who got in over their head with mortgages or who lost their jobs, and we have every concern for them, and we're very empathetic with their situation. Yet at the same time, more than likely, their problem is not going to go away. I mean, what are we talking about? Is the United States government going to, from now on, provide a minimum basic income thing, as has been talked about, or what? Because unless they get their jobs back and get caught up on their debts or get some debt forgiveness or whatever, their problem is still there, and all we're doing is just moving the problem down the street, if you get my drift.
Right. Yeah, we're speaking with Sir Owen. We're going to take a quick break and return live with more news and comment. Stay with us live on A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Granosky. We'll be back after this short break.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania Catania personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
David Granosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals, join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge. NMLS ID 492187. Equal housing lender.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Granosky here with Sir Owen, a geopolitical analyst who returns now with us. So, do you think that we're going to have to see this thing sweep, this new policy that New York City's testing the waters with, that you have to have your papers, please, to go to dinner or to go to the gym or go to a concert? Is this something that's going to be a trend in a lot of cities across America?
Well, it's hard. It depends on what happens in New York. If the people in New York put up with it, I mean, if they accept it peacefully, and unfortunately, this is going to be resolved probably unpeacefully, then I think you might see other states leaping in and doing it. But I don't think people quite get, when you have this medical, Naomi Wolf, who is a lady she's probably one of the country's, maybe the world's most prominent feminist, and someone that I don't normally follow, but she had a tremendous warning about health passports that I was just amazed that it came from that particular, but she is a clear thinker, and she's very far left, but she was trying to warn her friends and people on both sides about the implications of a passport, of a health passport. She said, it is the end of liberty as we know it forever.
Right.
That's basically her walkaway line. And it's a YouTube thing. You can find it, Naomi Wolf, on COVID passports or health passports. But her thesis was, and she is a tech lady. She has her own high-tech company, so she understands the technology. And what her thesis is that it will be, a social scoring system, that it will very quickly become a social scoring system that will be integrated into everything you do, very much like the Chinese system that they have now, where they have social scoring. I mean, you basically, if you haven't said the right things, been with the right people, gone to the right place, the Chinese are able to track their people, locate any person in China within 5 minutes.
Right.
And they have 1,400,000,000 or so people. So that's roughly 4 times the population of the United States. So the technology is already in place as the Chinese have applied it. Have a social scoring that determines if you don't live well, or you don't do the right things, then you are not allowed to go to the colleges, or you're not allowed to participate in certain levels of social interaction. So there's a constant social scoring for every Chinese that goes on. And she says that particular platform is easily migrated to the health passport, because if you think about it, you would have to show this passport when you go into any restaurant, when you go into any shopping store, into any grocery. It immediately identifies that you're there. And beyond that, it even identifies when they start, as you say, manipulating the algorithms on the back end, who you're with when you go. And from that, then they gain a perspective on, your habits, the kind of person you are. I mean, we've all seen the programs on television where the FBI profiler develops a profile on a suspect that he's never seen, that sort of thing. But these algorithms go way beyond that. And she said it is absolutely no problem to adapt to those existing algorithms to a health passport. She says the health passport is the camel's nose in the tent. She says if it comes through in any form and is mandated on a national level, it's the end of freedom as we know it. And I have never been on the same side with Naomi, I'm sorry to say, very seldom on the same side. But in this particular instance, she got my attention, and I think that she is, I had not thought about the social scoring and the abuses that would be inevitable from this kind of passport being out there. But when you think about it, it's quite logical. We've moved towards it with our driver's license and all this sort of thing, but we don't have to show the driver's license all the time. This health passport, you would have to show it to virtually participate in society. They would know what kind of things you want to go to. If you want to go to a club and if you want to go to a jazz bar, you want to go to a headbanger bar, or you want to go to whatever, they would know exactly the kind of thing you like. And then they tie that in with your Amazon account, your purchasing histories. And in about 5 minutes, through the courtesy of NSA and these other acronym agencies, they got a picture of you. So it's worth for your listeners, if they want to take a moment and just Google it. Naomi Wolf warns on medical passports. It's a gripping YouTube presentation from her. It's not long. It was worth it. I was amazed. Quite frankly, she opened my eyes about a couple of things. I don't think she's particularly. It was a polemic. I think she was speaking from the heart, and she knows whereof she speaks.
Right. Yeah, man. And talk about shifting to another topic related to this medical tyranny. There's a report in FloridaPolitics.com that Tampa Bay women file federal suit, hope to overturn the public transit mask mandate. The women cite adverse health effects from wearing masks on long flights. Says 2 Tampa Bay women have teamed up with a Wyoming nonprofit on a lawsuit seeking to overturn public transport masking requirements. Sarah Pope and Anna Carolina Daza from Safety Harbor filed suit in Tampa federal court. So they're working with the Health Freedom Defense Fund, and they say there's potential adverse health effects from this that cannot be casually dismissed. Even healthcare workers who are trained in the use of masks have been susceptible to adverse effects from prolonged mask use during the COVID-19 pandemic. The suit issues like headaches and neck strains as symptoms associated with higher carbon dioxide intake. However, so what do you think of that? That's pretty neat, something coming out of Tampa Bay. Hopefully that makes some traction.
Well, I wish them well, and I give them 10 points for their enthusiasm. I hope they prevail. I think everyone who is concerned about liberty and freedom has to be on the side of personal choice. Right. And in that environment, you pay your money and you take your chances. I think that I don't know how they'll come out, but it's certainly good to see people digging in their heels a bit, because if you don't fight every inch of the way, they'll take it all. I mean, this COVID thing and authority and the government and all blends into a mix that it's hard to see how it's going to eventually evolve. But this goes way beyond the health issue we're having right now, which is a real issue. I mean, there's a problem out there. Some people but we always have problems, and the reality is everybody dies, David. Right. Everyone is acting like that they are immortal and they're going to have something taken away from them. Well, every day people are dying for this or that reason, and this is just one of those things that grab you and come through your society. Obviously, you try to take care of it, but why run to government to take care of it? Why is it governments? Why don't we just exercise some personal responsibility and, conduct your life? If you want to wear a mask, I'm all for you wearing a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, I'm all for you not wearing a mask. So it's your call, but this authoritarian streak trying to make it evil or bad if you do or don't wear a mask, it goes nowhere. All it does is it polarizes people and creates a lot of social tension. And I don't think in my lifetime that there's been as much social tension on so many fronts as there is right now in the world we live in. And but at the same time, David, and I don't know if you believe this, but I believe there's also a loss of perspective. We're all worried about this COVID and hopping up and down and everything. But we live with really much more dire problems, much more immediate problems. For instance, the antagonism between our country, or between Washington and Russia, and Washington and China, and Washington and other powers all over the planet, is a much more immediate a threat to our well-being and survival as a species than this COVID thing.
Well, we're out of time, Sir Owen. It's always great having you on, and great points as always. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, David. Good to talk to you.
We'll talk again soon, and we'll continue live in just a moment with another guest who will join us, Tucker Goodrich, who's going to look at some of the nutrition news and what we can learn from in the latest science he's been digesting. Stay with us. More in a moment.
What's everyone saying about the all-new News Talk 1040 WHBO?
Talk radio is cool because everybody gets to give their opinion.
What I like about talk radio is that all of the broadcasters give their opinions, which helps educate me on the local news and current events.
That's what I like about talk radio, all the different opinions.
Current topics of the day.
Breaking news, they have probably the best news source.
Tampa Bay. The news and talk of Tampa Bay.
I just love that station.
News Talk 1040 WHBO.
The CDC says the Delta variant now accounts for 93% of all COVID-19 cases in the U.S. Curtis Cannon, who's being treated for the virus at a hospital in Shreveport, Louisiana, says he was skeptical about getting the vaccine, and now he regrets it.
This is it. This is super real. I think everyone should get vaccinated.
Louisiana is in the midst of another COVID surge. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's announced a statewide school mask mandate.
People are dying who don't have to die. It's heartbreaking, and it impacts us all.
The mandate will apply to all public and private school students, regardless of vaccination status. A count by the Associated Press finds a majority of New York State Assembly members support beginning impeachment proceedings against Governor Andrew Cuomo if he doesn't resign over investigative findings that he sexually harassed at least 11 women. Stocks closed mostly lower today, the Dow down more than 300 points. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
Ron DeSantis says he doesn't want to hear a blip from Joe Biden on COVID-19. That's the headline on FloridaPolitics.com. And it's Ron DeSantis of Florida just really challenged him because, of course, they want to politicize everything about this COVID deal. And he says Joe Biden has taken it to himself to try to single out Florida over COVID. He says this is a guy who ran for president saying he was going to, quote, shut down the virus. And what has he done? He's imported more virus from around the world by having a wide open southern border. You have hundreds of thousands of people pouring across every month. And it's not just from Mexico. In fact, it's rarely from Mexico. You have over 100 different countries where people are pouring through. Not only are they letting them through there, they're farming them out all across our communities, across this country, putting them on planes, putting them on buses. You think they're being worried about COVID for that? Of course not. So he's facilitating who knows what new variants are out there. But I can tell you, whatever variants around the world, they're coming across the southern border, and he's not shutting down the virus. He's helping to facilitate it in our country. He goes on to say his solution is he wants to have the government force kindergartners to wear masks in school. He doesn't believe the parents should have a say in that. He thinks that there should be a decision for the government. Well, I can tell you in Florida, the parents are going to be the ones in charge of that decision. And he wasn't finished. The article says that DeSantis went on to say, and one of the major medical people in his administration just recently told parents that they should be wearing masks at home when they're around their own children. This is insane. He said he rejects science because he denies the fact that people that recover from COVID have long-lasting immunity, and that's been proven time and time again. He said, and so the question is, either we can have a free society or we can have a biomedical security state. And I can tell you, Florida, we're a free state. People are going to be free to choose to make their own decisions about themselves, about their families, about their kids' education, and about putting food on the table. And Joe Biden suggests that if you don't do lockdown policies, then you should get out of the way. Well, let me tell you this. If you're coming after the rights of parents in Florida, I'm standing in your way. I'm not going to let you get away with it. If you're trying to deny kids a proper in-person education, I'm going to stand in your way. I'm going to stand up for the kids in Florida. And if you're trying to restrict people and impose mandates, if you're trying to ruin their jobs and their livelihoods and their small business, if you're trying to lock people down, I am standing in your way, and I am standing for the people of Florida. So why don't you do your job? So that's a pretty strong response from Ron DeSantis to Joe Biden. So it'll be interesting to see how this continues. But joining me now to discuss nutrition science and some of the things going on in that space is Tucker Goodrich. How you doing, Tucker?
I'm good, David. How are you?
I'm doing great. And I know you've got a speech coming up soon, huh? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing there.
Yeah, there's a group called the Ancestral Health Symposium. They've got a journal that they publish. I think this is their 10th year in business. And they're all about, my favorite topic is going back to a more traditional ancestral way of eating and seeing how we can improve our health that way rather than just relying on drugs and misunderstanding of how our bodies work. The fellow who founded it, Aaron Blaisdell, is a research scientist out at UCLA where this symposium is going to take place. And he's a fascinating guy. He had a supposed genetic disease called porphyria, where he and I guess his, other members of his family were super sensitive to the sun. So whenever he got out into the sun, he would get sunburned, rather extremely. And I forget why he tried to fix his diet, but after he did, he found out that his supposed genetic illness was no longer a problem.
Wow. Interesting.
So pretty remarkable. And the fact that he was actually, a scientist kind of resonated with him. And he went on to learn more about this and has been spreading this message now for 10 years. So I'm going to be speaking about, our favorite topic here, seed oils and health, and especially chronic diseases, and should be a lot of fun. So I'm deep in the realm of PowerPoint right now.
I want to ask, let's do like a quick Q&A style, quick answer, quick question, kind of run through of the basics of the argument, because just as a refresher and for folks who are new to this subject, first of all, what are seed oils? Let's start there. Just give us a quick answer for what seed oils, what does that mean?
Well, seed oils are a kind of vegetable oil. So we have oils that are made from seeds like corn, soybean, cottonseed, peanut, and then we have vegetable oils that are made from fruits like olive oil, avocado oil, we'll call coconut oil a fruit oil. And the difference between the two is basically the fats that you find in them. Seeds tend to be high in unstable polyunsaturated fats that degrade, go rancid very quickly, and fruit oils tend to be high in monounsaturated and saturated fats that are much more stable and healthy for you to eat. Seed oils in large amounts is a recent addition to the human diet. Consumption of it started before the American Civil War in Europe and after the American Civil War here in the United States. And lots of diseases that were rare up until that point, until the introduction of seed oils into our diet, suddenly became common after we started eating seed oils, and that's diabetes, heart disease, cancer. I haven't gotten to the cancer part of my presentation, but there were famous, well-known academic doctors who had never seen a heart disease in their practice back in the late 1900s. There were doctors who had encountered a handful of diabetics, hospitals who had encountered a handful of diabetics over the course of the 1900s in the United States. And when you think that those are, heart disease is now our leading cause of death, and diabetes is probably our leading chronic disease in the United States, that's really mind-boggling. What could have changed in such a short period of time? And of course, you know what my answer is.
So your answer
we started eating these unhealthy fats that we'd never eaten a lot of before, in most of human history.
Now, I think it seems, I've talked about this topic, but just again as an introduction, how can it be that one simple factor like vegetable oils, it seems like such an obscure thing. You're talking about the soybean oil, margarine, mayonnaise. I'm trying to think of the common products that people think about. It's the food, it's the vegetable oil
salad
dressings,
pork.
Yeah, chicken and pork fat. All these different things that are so ubiquitous, chicken nuggets, the French fry oil, everything you can think of has got these things in it. Ice cream brands like Ben & Jerry's are loaded with vegetable oils, and Breyer's ice cream has it in it. You've got these different seed oils everywhere. It seems like an obscure, harmless little topic. Why can it be? How is it possible that it could be such a main driver for these different diseases you mentioned? I mean, if it was just the main driver for one, you mentioned heart disease, cancer, diabetes. Those are the big trifecta scary diseases people worry about.
That's an awesome question. And the answer is a very simple one. These fats are incorporated into every part of your body, from your skin to your heart to your eyes to your brain. The mitochondria, which are this power plant of almost every cell in your body, incorporate these fats in. And since these fats aren't stable in your body, and since when they break down into highly toxic substances, frankly, it'd be amazing if it didn't affect every part of your body. They're toxins that cause DNA damage, they cause protein damage. There was one paper I saw that said they damaged 24% of the proteins in your cells, in every cell in your body. We're talking about you can call it a systemic toxin, right? It damages it has the potential to damage every part of your body. Now, different people deal with it in different ways, just like, I mean, I think a really good analogy is smoking. You don't get lung cancer after you have a cigarette or even a pack of cigarettes, right? You've got to be doing it for years because your body has mechanisms to deal with these kinds of stresses, from whether it's smoking or alcohol consumption or vegetable or seed oil consumption. And not everybody who smokes gets lung cancer, right? Because this, we're talking about fundamental processes here. These aren't fats that you don't want in your body. Every natural food has these fats. What we don't want is excess fats, right? It's just like a little bit of alcohol is okay for your health. Being an alcoholic's not a good idea. Well, as far as that analogy goes, we're in the alcoholic level of seed oil consumption.
So why are they considered a toxin in your view? What do they do? Can you explain what they do?
Okay, so one of the major toxins in cigarette smoke is called acrylane. Seed oils also convert into acrylane in your body. Acrylane causes your DNA to mutate. And it particularly causes it to mutate at a gene called the P53 gene, which is, frighteningly enough, your tumor suppressor gene. So if you break the gene in your body that is designed to fight tumors, then guess what happens? You can't fight tumors. And that's why they think lung cancer is caused by cigarette smoking, because you're inhaling something that breaks your lungs' ability to fight off tumors. The same thing happens with seed oils. I mean, this same gene is damaged in 80% of skin cancers. Skin cancer, may be surprising to your doctor to hear this, but humans evolved to live in the sun. And everybody didn't used to get skin cancer. If they go look at a primitive tribe living up in the high desert in the Andes, they don't get skin cancer, and they live in the sun their entire lives. And they don't eat lots of seed oils. They're eating a very basic diet up there, but they don't get skin cancer. So why I think it's the answer to why did all of these diseases become so common. And even nowadays, there are populations that don't get heart disease. There's a tribe down in the Amazon called the Tsimane in Bolivia. Doctors love to go down and look at them because, they don't get heart disease.
You mentioned that this vegetable oil, what is the carcinogen called? Acrylane?
Acrylane, yes.
Acrylane. So it damages the tumor suppressing gene P53 if you eat a lot of it, right? So what happens if you've eaten it your whole life, vegetable oils? If you stop eating it, can you turn that gene back on, or we don't know yet?
We don't know yet. It does. P53 is involved in DNA repair, and it's also involved in the cell's damage control systems. So it's, look, let me be frank about this. If you get just like if you get lung cancer, that's not the time to quit smoking. I don't know that we can repair all of the damage that happens to our bodies. We can, from my own experience, apparently repair a lot of the damage. I talk to people all the time who stopped eating seed oils or changed their diet in some way that they stopped eating seed oils, and all of a sudden they find, wow, I don't sunburn anymore. Why is that? I don't get it. These fats are very susceptible to damage by ultraviolet radiation, and they break down into toxins in your skin that cause inflammation and skin cell damage.
Right.
That's not obviously a great thing to have happen to yourself. And I'm living out here I live out here in Idaho now, which is high desert. I can be out, I'm blonde and blue-eyed. I will get burned if I'm out for 7 or 8 hours, but it takes me all day now, whereas it used to take me about 45 minutes. And when I do get a burn, it's not very severe. I don't get a lot of skin peeling, and, I haven't used a lick of sunscreen all summer, and I don't miss this stuff.
Right. So you also mentioned the diabetes connection to seed oils. You said that was there a huge increase in diabetes around the Civil War? What was that all about?
It went up 15 times after the Civil War, diabetes mortality. And it went up even more in the cities, which kind of makes sense because people who are on farms are going to eat a more natural diet. People don't make their own vegetable oils and they can get their own animal fats. After the Civil War, it became a huge problem that lard, which was the main cooking fat then, was adulterated with cottonseed oil. And it became such a big problem that they had government investigations in the United States and in Canada. The Canadians said all the lard that we get from America is adulterated with cottonseed oil. And Congress passed laws against adulteration. I mean, that was one of the impetus for the FDA finally. It was a huge problem. Nowadays, and they've known this since the 1960s, if you look at soybean oil in the scientific literature, they call it obesogenic, meaning it makes you obese. Well, it's also got another wonderful quality. If they want to do a test on people to make them insulin resistant as if they were diabetic, they inject soybean oil into their veins. And it doesn't work if they don't use a seed oil. If they use olive oil, you don't get the same effect.
Right.
So that's in human studies. That's the original paper that tried that was from back in the 1960s that I've been able to find, and scientists are still using it today. So the biggest change in the 20th century in the American diet was the amount of soybean oil that went up 1,000-fold. Scientists know that it will make animals anyway obese, and they know that it will make humans insulin resistant. And our two biggest problems are insulin resistance and obesity. Why isn't anybody other than, some people are connecting the dots, but why are they still allowing consumption of this stuff?
Right. Yeah, I'm looking at the American Diabetes Association. They talk about using safflower oil, plant-based oils. You can use butter or margarine. You got to get dry, lean, dry as hell beef, lean beef with none of the animal fats left in it. You know what I mean? So they got all kinds of wacky information on the American Diabetes Association website promoting plant oils. They call it.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the other pieces of research I've been going through is heart disease and animal fats versus vegetable fats. When they started saying, animal fats are going to give you heart disease, people went and looked, and they're like, well, in America before the 1900s, when heart disease was unknown, we weren't eating all that much seed oils. In England, they were eating lots of animal fat. In India, the people who ate lots of animal fat had low heart disease rates. And the Southern Indians who ate the diet that the American Diabetes Association tells you to eat, they had 7 times the rate of heart disease as the people who were eating dairy fat in northern India. And I mean, that's research from the 1960s and early 1970s. This is nothing new. It's just, it keeps getting ignored.
Right. A commenter asked, does Tucker have any suggestions for iron skillet seasoning oil? I've been using flaxseed oil as recommended by an iron skillet enthusiast, but it smells fishy but lasts days.
Yeah, flaxseed oil is the way to go. I mean, it's varnish basically, and it polymerizes. It's exactly the reason why you don't want to eat too much polyunsaturated fats, is that it polymerizes real well. So I haven't tried it myself, but that's what I've heard is the best thing to use, and it's apparently a really long process. I generally use stainless steel, honestly.
Yeah. Another says, "Hi, David. Try to bring Dr. Stephanie Seneff to talk about glyphosate. We are being poisoned. This, together with seed oils, are the elephant in the room. Congratulations for your work and keep bringing Tucker." Any thoughts on the glyphosate issue? that issue is brought up in a lot of circles, but I don't know as much about.
Well, glyphosate, like smoking, seems to be something that induces what's called oxidative stress, and oxidative stress is the process of polyunsaturated fats breaking down into toxins. I will note that there are, first off, this all started long before glyphosate started being used, and is appearing all over the world, even in places where they're, to use glyphosate, you've got to have a pretty big industrial farm. Clearly it's not a great idea to be eating pesticides, but I don't think it's the fundamental problem here.
Let's take a quick break. We're speaking with Tucker Goodrich, learning introductions to the seed oil topic, also known as vegetable oils. We'll be right back to answer any of your questions, as well as get Tucker's comments on his, the reason why this is such an important topic. Back in a second.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Tucker Goodrich returns with us live on A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski. Tucker, so what about palm oil? You see that as a common oil in a lot of junk food that people eat in America, at least, and probably around the world.
Well, palm oil was really popular a long time ago. Palmolive, the dish soap, was originally a blend of palm oil and olive oil. And now they're bringing it back because, they stopped using it because they were using Crisco and trans fat oils. And now they're bringing it back because obviously trans fat turned out to be a problem. I'm not crazy about it myself, but it's got a better fatty acid composition than any of the sweet oil. I would qualify that as being a fruit oil.
You're breaking up a little bit. Can you say that last sentence again?
Sorry about that. The palm oil is a fruit oil, so it's got a much better fatty acid composition than the seed oils do. So I've tried cooking it with it. I don't really care for it, but I don't think it's particularly harmful.
Yeah. Another question asked about cardiolipins.
Oh, cardiolipin is one of my favorite topics. So cardiolipin is a fat that's found in your mitochondria. It's a fundamentally important molecule for producing energy. And it is what causes It is how seed oils cause your mitochondria to break down. Your body, for some interesting reasons, likes to use polyunsaturated fat in this molecule, but if it gets too much of it, then it oxidizes and breaks down into these toxins and causes, your mitochondria to not work correctly, but it also introduces these toxins into your cell where they can start the process of damaging your DNA.
So those are bad when you're eating them at the seed oil level, right?
Yeah, no, we don't want to, in animal models, they can, heart failure is another major problem in America, and they can give an animal heart failure just by feeding them seed oils.
Luca, another commenter, says, for diabetes, etc., Tucker is correct, but with autism and autoimmune conditions, glyphosate is a big problem. It interrupts the integrity of the intestinal barrier. Any response?
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. There was doctors who looked at autoimmune disease in Africa decades ago, back before the Western diet was introduced. There was no autoimmune disease in Africa. And when the Western diet came in decades before glyphosate was introduced, they started seeing autoimmune conditions rising in Africa. So it's another thing that long predates the introduction of glyphosate.
Well, Tucker, it's always great having you on, and we're looking forward to hearing how your speech goes. And also, we'll have to give a shout out to our upcoming Ray Peat interview, which is going to debut after this live broadcast today on our YouTube channel and Rumble and all that good stuff. It was quite a fascinating discussion. And Tucker,
that was an amazing discussion.
Yeah, we look forward to doing many more of these together, because I think we're on to the biggest topic in health, and we're just scratching the surface of what we can learn in this field.
Okay, thank you, David. It's been great talking to you, as always.
Yeah, great having you on. And that's it for A Neighbor's Choice, folks. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. That's hello@aneighborschoice.com. And remember, go to our website today, aneighborschoice.com, where you'll see my exclusive sit-down with Dr. Pierre Corey, who's doing a lot of wonderful work with early treatment on COVID. And you'll see our exclusive discussion with Dr. Ray Peat on nutrition extraordinaire. It's great having you as always. I'm David Gronowski. Godspeed.